Hey everybody, today I'm talking about 7 board games that I'm really excited to play. These are either really new releases or imminently about to be released, with the exception of a couple. So let's get started and talk through these games. So the first game I'm going to talk about is Four Gardens. Now this is officially a 2020 game, however it's only just become available in the UK. And this is a pretty simple kind of resource collection and contract fulfillment style game where you're trying to paint these panoramic pictures. But what intrigues me about this game is how you gather those resources in the first place, because you have this 3D pagoda made up of these 4 different sections, and they all rotate individually. And on each face of those pagodas, because they're kind of like a box where on each side of that pagoda section has a different resource on them, or a different amount of resources, and depending on where you're sitting on the table depends what resources are available to you. And basically one of the actions you can take is to basically reap the rewards from that pagoda, either from top to bottom or bottom to top. And you might think, why don't I always just take or adjust the pagoda or manipulate the pagoda to try and get the most resources possible? It's because you have a very strict capacity on the resources you can hold at any time. So, for example, if you really wanted the grass, which is on like the 3rd layer down, you couldn't get that grass until you go through, say, the stone and the wood. But if you don't have the capacity by the time it gets to that grass, then that's going to be wasted and you're not going to get it in the first place. I think that's a really interesting mechanism. I'm quite intrigued to try out for myself. The rest of the game looks pretty straightforward. However, it does look decent. It looks like it's got a good flow to it, and it plays in about 45 minutes. So I'm really intrigued about that resource mechanism and that pagoda system. And it's not only got a great table presence, but has a great functionality to it as well. So yeah, really excited to try out Four Gardens. The next game I'm going to try is something with a completely different theme. This one is Furnace. Now, Furnace has a more kind of industrial vibe, and it's an engine building and kind of auction bidding style game, as you have this array of cards on the table in front of you, and in player turn you are placing these different tokens onto the board or onto these cards to try and claim them. However, you're trying to bid for 2 different things. So the person who bids their most valuable token is going to get that card for their kind of tableau. But anybody who bids lower than that gets to take the resources on that card. And that's multiplied by the token you put on that. So I really like that twist where, if you use your 1 token, then you're definitely not going to win the card, but you'll only get the bonus or the resources times 1. Whereas if you use your more valuable tokens, then you'll potentially get a lot stronger rewards. So it's all about how you're going to use those tokens to maximum benefit. And then once that's done, you can kind of trigger all the cards you've accumulated in any order you want to try and generate points. Looks like a really streamlined engine builder, and I love my engine building. And this one just has a nice vibe to it. It has I love the artwork. It's got a nice visual aspect to it as well, and I'm just really intrigued to see if this one is going to be as good as I think it could be. So that is Furnace. Another game I'm really excited to play, probably one of my most anticipated games of the year. This is Dark Ages. So Dark Ages is a 4X Euro style game that's just about to be fulfilled from last year's Kickstarter campaign. And this is by Board and Dice, who are a company I actually really rate the games they put out at least. And this is obviously set in the Dark Ages, which is right up my alley, and I love games set in this time period. And the fact that this one has so many different ways you can get victory points. You can build up your infrastructure and your economy, as well as having all the kind of militaristic style things you'd expect with a game like this. But I love the fact that this isn't a game where you can just go out and just smash other people, and it's not really got that ultra confrontational vibe to it. You can completely go a different route and just concentrate on getting points in different ways, building buildings, generating resources, and the actual core mechanisms of this game actually seem really streamlined, where you're just selecting an action and taking that corresponding action, but once there's a certain amount of tokens on that action, then people can get kicked out of that spot and trigger another follow-up action. And I love that. It's a real simple, streamlined mechanism that intrigues me quite a bit, and I think that's going to do a great job of facilitating to accommodate a lot of different player counts. So I'm hoping this one is as good as I think it could be. And yeah, I'm excited to see the different routes you can go. The table presence looks fantastic, and this is kind of the game I've been looking for a long time to come. So it's either going to go one of two ways. It's either going to be as good as I hope it's going to be, or it's going to fall flat. But fingers crossed, it's going to be the former. That is Dark Ages. The next game is another Kickstarter game. However, this is a re-implementation or a reworking of a classic Martin Wallace game. This is Tinner's Trail. Now, Martin Wallace is actually a designer who I'm really starting to dive into because recently I've played Brass, Birmingham, and I've played Anno 1800, and both those games have massively impressed me. So naturally starting to get excited to dig into his back catalogue, and Tinner's Trail is a game that's about to be fulfilled. So this one is actually a game that's set in England, a part of the world actually where I'm from. So it's nice that it's got kind of a bit of a personal linkage to me. And this is a game where you are trying to explore these mines, and you are going to be bidding on these mines to try and kind of extort the resources from them. So you obviously got your tin, you've got your copper, and all your different metals. However, you can kind of choose to do a bit of a survey on these and get a better idea of what you're bidding on, or you can basically choose to take a bit of a blind bid and a bit of a punt on what could be in these mines. And the idea is that once you discover these mines, you're trying to again get the resources out of them, to try and trade them in for money, to get victory points. But I love this kind of thematic mechanism where the more you mine from these mines, or the more resources you take from these mines, the more they're going to get filled up with water, which means that it's going to be a bit more costly to get the resources from them. However, you can choose to invest in these pumps to try and clear those mines out of water. So I always like the way that Martin Wallace uses that little bit of theme and that kind of intuitive mechanisms. I love the way he does that thing, and I'm kind of starting to kind of get more interested in these more industrial and economic style games. And Tinner's Trail looks like it's down that kind of alleyway, and it looks like it's slightly lighter than the other Martin Wallace games that I have in my collection currently. So yeah, really excited to try this one, and again, hope it's going to be as good as I think it could be. The next game is something a bit different. This is Kora, The Rise of an Empire. So this is kind of a more advanced game for Yellow, who Yellow are kind of known for their more family weight games. So it's nice to see a different kind of turn of direction for Yellow. And this is a pretty light civilization style game. We have a bunch of different tracks, one determining your population, one your income, your military, all these different things. And on top of all that, you've got your own individual player board as well, which gives you unique benefits and things to go for depending on the kind of nation or the city you're representing. And this is a pretty simple kind of action selection game, but your actions are actually determined by dice you're rolling. So you've got a bit of tunnel vision there, and you're led down a certain path, but you have got a bit of mitigation by spending population to choose the tiles you want. And it just looks like a nice breezy game where I don't really have a civilization style game in my collection, and I'm still looking for the one for me, and perhaps Kora could be the one. So it looks really nice. I know I love the visuals, really nice artwork, and it certainly looks like a game that I can teach to anybody, because again, when it's led or driven by dice, I always find those games easy to explain. However, there does look like there's a lot of decent depth here and lots of avenues to go down to get different types of victory points. So yeah, definitely intrigued to try Kora, The Rise of an Empire. The second last game I'm going to talk about is My Farm Shop. So this is actually a game that's not brand new, however it has recently just kind of popped up on my radar. And this is by one of my favourite designers, Rudiger Dawn, who I think is just a massive kind of the David Bowie of board gaming. He does so many different things. He's great at so many different types of games. And this one takes that system that's known or been kind of made famous by games like Machikoro and Space Base, which ironically are games that I didn't like at all. But for some reason, something in my head says, there's a game out there using that system, where you're rolling dice and you have a tableau of cards, and you are going to trigger the actions depending on what those dice rolls are on your personal cards, and get resources and things. Yeah, I really feel like there's a game out there for me using that system. However, I'm yet to find it. So hopefully it's third time lucky with My Farm Shop. There's a lot of pressure on Rudiger Dawn to do this for me, and if I've got any faith in any designer, it's going to be for Rudiger Dawn. And this one is, again, simple as that. You're getting resources, but I like the idea where you are acquiring these contracts and putting them on your tableau. So when you trigger a certain number again, you can actually choose to cash in those resources to get those contracts done. And it just looks like all the little issues I had with those other games are just slightly tweaked in the favour of games that I would like. So I'm hoping this is going to be it's going to fix those problems. I'm hoping it's going to be that game that I'm looking for, because it looks really approachable. It looks maybe a little bit too kiddish or childlike, for what I'm looking for. But hopefully the gameplay itself is going to rectify that and overshadow those little issues. So that's my farm shop. And the final game I'm really excited to play that's only just come out actually. This is Meadow. Now, Meadow is another stunning looking game. This one is kind of this woodland critters, kind of different animals, and you've got these different landscapes. And I suppose you can call it kind of a set collection style game, as you have this big grid of cards, and you have these kind of tokens or your player pieces that you are putting onto this board, which shows which cards you can get at any time. And you're collecting these cards for points. But then kind of the more advanced cards you're collecting have prerequisites on them, which say, you might need a tree token and you might need this symbol in order to get this card. And it's going to keep developing like that as you're acquiring more and more cards. But I think the reason I'm excited to play this one is because this is the kind of game that my girlfriend would really enjoy, at least in terms of the theme and setting. And it's slightly more advanced to the usual things we play together. And I'm hoping this will be kind of a hook for her to sink her teeth into. So not only is it going to be massively approachable, really beautiful to look at, and has a nice theme, but also the gameplay itself is looking strong for this one. So yeah, certainly willing to give this one a try. That is Meadow. So yeah, that's just my quick little consensus of these 7 games I'm excited to play, and hopefully sooner or later in the near future I'll be able to get reviews out of these and share my thoughts with you once they're played. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, please hit like and subscribe to my channel, and check out my other videos too. For everyone else, I'll see you next time on Chairman of the Board. Bye.